Hello, my name is Jourdan Mcneill, and today I will be talking about Chapter 29 in the Sports Psychology Handbook titled Sports Psychology Support for Athletes with Disabilities. This chapter talks about disabled athletes and how they have different ways to cope with their disease, disability, and still performing at a Paralympic level. Some of the topics that I will go over are different levels of performers, classification, psychological skills for athletes with disabilities, and sports psychologist factors when dealing with these disabled athletes. Classification in Paralympic sports differ and is more complex than in able-bodied sports. Usually, you are split into one of 6 different disability groups within the Paralympic sports. Athletes that have different disabilities, like blindness or cerebral palsy, wouldn't compete against each other. This is a lot different than able-bodied sports because whoever is up to play, that's who's going to race. So the division of athletes keep the competitiveness at a level playing field in disabled sports, with each having their own rules and psychological demands. This division also protects the integrity of the game, making the game fun for all but still competitive. Next, I will go over some of the psychological skills for athletes with disabilities. Many disabled athletes are mentally stronger than able-bodied athletes. Having to overcome a traumatic event leading to disability and still performing at a high level is psychologically a barrier many able-bodied athletes don't have to overcome. Now I will talk about some of the skills used to overcome their disabilities. Many disabled athletes have to use a refocusing routine to gain back focus that can sometimes be lost because of distractions outside of the athlete's control. Examples like muscle cramps or crowd noise that can sometimes alter how they're feeling, and they can sometimes have panic attacks. Another skill that disabled athletes use is positive self-talk. Speaking to themselves positively can ultimately slow the game back down and fight off the anxiety they're feeling. Another skill disabled athletes use to overcome anxiety is mental rehearsal. Many disabled athletes use mental rehearsal to help visualize success in their sport. Sometimes mental rehearsal is not the most effective way to increase performance and play beyond their disability. They may see themselves performing their sport as an able-bodied athlete, which could ultimately lead to negative performance and an increase in anxiety. Next, I will talk about some of the factors to consider when working with a disabled athlete. Having an understanding of the physical trauma that comes with their disability. No disabled athlete chose their condition. They were kind of set upon it. But they are fighting for an athletic career despite their disability. This has to be taken into account when working with a disabled athlete. Sometimes a disabled athlete may be more emotional than an able-bodied athlete, causing anxiety or even depression. Another factor to consider when working with a disabled athlete is their motivation to compete. Disabled athletes see sports differently than maybe an able athlete would. For most disabled athletes, they feel as though playing sports is an affirmation of existence. They see the sport they play as their second chance in life. A second chance to focus on their ability rather than their disability. With this unique approach to sports psychologists have to greatly consider their motivational methods when dealing with disabled athletes rather than able-bodied athletes. Next, I will talk about my first journal article called A Mental Skills Package for Special Olympic Athletes, a Preliminary Study. My first journal article talks about a study of 3 Paralympic track and field athletes and their mental skills. 3 athletes were put through a multiple baseline design and put through a MST, also known as the mental skills training. Mental skills training is the involving of psychological elements that enhance athletic performance. The training works on both physical and mental preparation for competition, reinforcing skills like relaxation, imagery, self-talk, and mental rehearsal to help the athletes decrease likeliness of off-task behaviors. The athletes were successful in the MST, and because of this, they drastically increased the number of laps run and decreased in off-task behavior. The athletes also decreased in anxiety and overall performance based on their completion of the MST. This journal article directly related to the chapter 29 in the mental side of training Paralympic athletes. It is as important to train the mental side of any athlete, but more so disabled athletes, because that is so much more a part of their game than the physical aspect. Much like able-bodied athletes, if you can't overcome yourself, you're no good. Next, I will talk about my second journal article called Growing Older in Special Olympics, Meaning and Benefits of Competition. This journal article talks about the growth of the Paralympics and the increase in competition. The boom in Paralympic sports is due to many of the disabled population getting and remaining involved in the Paralympics and giving back to the sport. Unfortunately, they are involved in the sport under discouraging terms, but they still come out and they compete at a high level. For this observation, 3 adult Special Olympians were used to study the benefits and effects of participation in the Paralympics. When observed, the participants confirmed that the addition of better people skills, more confidence in controlling mental breakdowns, are all benefits of the Paralympics. These 3 athletes were of different age ranges, from ages 20 to mid-30s, to accurately depict responses from different age groups. These athletes also confirmed that the sports skills, fitness, and competition were big contributions to their life because of competing in the Paralympics. This article relates more to the benefits socially that the Paralympics can have on people with disabilities, as said in the chapter, essentially giving them another shot at identity and befriending people that share similar life experiences and similar pains in the process. Overall, sports psychology for athletes with disabilities is a different job than for able-bodied athletes. Disabled athletes have a different motivation of competition and what it means to them. While this approach of me against the world attitude is sometimes detrimental to the mental performance of disabled athletes, it is the edge that helps them overcome disability and still perform at a high level. The Paralympics and other disabled athlete competitions give these athletes a shot at an athletic career that was stripped of them. Whether through sickness, diseases, or automobile accidents, they have overcome their disability and turned it into a positive way to express themselves through sports and influence other disabled athletes in the process to do the same. For many disabled athletes, the Paralympics is all they have. They are looked down on by some members of society, and the Paralympics give them an outlet to come out and be themselves while still being able to compete and do the sport that they love. Disabled athletes' participation in the Paralympics is more than about competing. It's about breaking the chains that able-bodied people put on them and still striving for greatness in their own way. And that should be more than respected. They have their chance to compete just like able-bodied athletes, and that's all they ask for. Well, this is the end of my presentation, and I just want to thank you for your time. Have a blessed day.